The ancient research facility loomed before Lyra Blackwood like a twisted metal flower blooming across the moon's cratered surface. Her archaeology team had spent 3 months excavating this site, but something about today felt different. The facility's dormant systems had suddenly activated, sending pulses of strange energy through its corridors. "Professor Blackwood, you should see this," called out her research assistant, Raven Tors, from deeper within the facility. Lyra adjusted her environment suit and made her way through the winding corridors, her boots leaving prints in the dust of centuries. The chamber Raven had discovered was unlike anything they'd seen before. Crystalline formations grew from the walls like frozen waterfalls, but it was the center of the room that made Lyra's breath catch. A transparent containment pod stood there, and inside floated a humanoid figure with skin like polished opal. "Life signs are stable," Raven whispered, checking her scanner. "Whatever preservation technology they used here, it's far beyond anything in our database." Lyra approached the pod carefully. The being inside appeared to be sleeping, its iridescent skin shifting colors with each breath. According to the facility's partial records, this was a meridian, a species thought to be nothing more than a myth, capable of manipulating quantum fields through their crystalline biology. As she studied the control panel, a slight movement caught her eye. The meridian's fingers twitched, and its eyes, dark as space itself, slowly opened. Lyra found herself frozen in place as those eyes focused on her with frightening intelligence. "I can hear you," a voice echoed in her mind, melodic but weak. "After so long in silence, please help me." Raven's scanner started beeping frantically. "Professor, the pod systems are failing. Whatever kept it in stasis is breaking down." Lyra's training told her to step back, to call in the Asterian authorities who controlled this sector. But something in those eyes spoke of consciousness, of personhood, and of pain. "What's your name?" Lyra projected her thoughts, hoping the being could hear her. Talaris Shaw." The response came with a wave of memories, a world of crystal spires, a civilization of beings who danced with quantum strings, and then darkness as the Asterians came with their neural suppressors and containment fields. The pod's surface began to crack, and warning lights flashed across its display. Lyra made her decision in that moment, knowing it would change everything. "Raven, help me with the emergency release. We're getting him out of there." "Professor, the protocols." "Forget the protocols. He's a person, not a specimen." Working together, they managed to override the pod's ancient systems. As the preservation fluid drained away, Talaris took his first real breath in centuries. His crystalline form caught the light, sending rainbow refractions across the chamber walls. "The Asterians," he gasped, his voice now physical but still musical. "They'll come for me. They never stopped hunting my kind." Lyra helped him stand, supporting his weight as his legs remembered their purpose. "Then we better make sure they don't find you. Raven, wipe the facility's logs, all of them." "You don't understand what I am," Talaris warned, even as he leaned on her. "What I can do." "I understand enough," Lyra replied, meeting his dark eyes. "I understand that no one deserves to be treated like a laboratory specimen." As if to demonstrate his point, Talaris raised one shaking hand. The crystalline growths around the chamber resonated, and suddenly the facility's lights flickered. Through their connected thoughts, Lyra saw what he was doing, redirecting quantum energy, weaving it into a shield that would hide them from sensors. "The meridians," he explained weakly. "We were meant to be bridges between dimensions, shepherds of energy. The Asterians saw us only as batteries for their networks." Raven returned breathless. "Logs are wiped, but we've got incoming ships, Asterian signatures." Lyra felt Talaris tense beside her. In that moment, she knew she couldn't let him be taken again. Her career, her reputation, everything she'd worked for, it all seemed insignificant compared to the weight of this choice. "There's a research vessel in the lower hangar," she said. "We can reach it through the maintenance tunnels. Raven, you need to go back to the camp. Tell them we were never here." Her assistant hesitated only briefly before nodding. "Be careful, Professor. Whatever you're getting into, just be careful." As they made their way through the darkness of the tunnels, Talaris's skin provided just enough light to see by. Each step seemed to strengthen him, as if proximity to another living being was helping him recover. "Why," he asked finally, "why help me? Your people and the Asterians have been allies for decades." Lyra helped him over a fallen beam before responding. "Because sometimes doing the right thing means breaking the rules. Because I've spent my life studying the past, and I refuse to let history repeat itself with another species being enslaved." They reached the hangar just as alarms began blaring through the facility. The research vessel was small but functional, enough to get them to the outer colonies, where questions weren't asked as long as you had credits to spend. As they prepared for launch, Lyra felt Talaris's hand on her arm. His touch sent tiny sparkles of energy through her suit. "You're giving up everything," he said softly. "Your work, your world." "No," Lyra corrected him, initiating the launch sequence. "I'm finding something more important. Now let's see what's beyond these stars." The vessel rose smoothly, breaking free of the moon's weak gravity. Behind them, Asterian ships were just beginning their descent, too late to stop what had already been set in motion. As they accelerated toward the darkness between stars, Lyra glanced at her companion. Talaris was watching the moon recede, his expression a mixture of fear and hope. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew this. Sometimes the greatest discoveries weren't artifacts or ancient technologies, but moments of choice that changed the course of history. As their small ship vanished into the quantum wake, Lyra Blackwood smiled, knowing she had just made hers. 3 weeks of hiding in the outer rim had taught Lyra more about quantum mechanics than her entire academic career. She watched, fascinated, as Talaris manipulated the energy fields around their stolen research vessel, weaving them into patterns that masked their signature from Asterian patrol ships. "The crystalline formations in your hands," she observed from her pilot's seat. "They're growing stronger." Talaris flexed his fingers, sending ripples of iridescent light across his skin. "Being free of the stasis pod has allowed my natural regeneration to resume, but it's not just physical healing." He turned to her, his dark eyes reflecting starlight. "Your presence, it anchors me, helps me remember who I was before the capture." Their ship, which Lyra had renamed Star Whisper, drifted through an asteroid field on the edges of the Nomad sector. Here, among the mining colonies and independent settlements, they'd managed to stay one step ahead of their pursuers while gathering intelligence about other captured meridians. "There's something you need to see," Talaris said, his voice tight with concern. He pressed his palm against the ship's navigation console, and suddenly the screens filled with streaming data, information pulled directly from passing quantum networks. Lyra leaned forward, her eyes widening as she read. "They're building quantum accelerators, massive ones, but the power requirements would be impossible without meridian cores," Talaris finished grimly. "My people, trapped in stasis, used as living batteries. The facility where you found me wasn't an ancient research station, Lyra. It was a prototype." The revelation hit her like a physical blow. Her entire archaeological study had been based on a lie. The Asterian Empire wasn't preserving history. They were hiding their crimes. A proximity alert chirped, drawing their attention. A massive cargo freighter was passing nearby, its hold supposedly full of mining equipment. But Talaris's expression told a different story. "There are others like me aboard that ship," he whispered, his crystalline skin pulsing with agitation. "I can feel their dreams, their pain." Lyra studied the freighter's trajectory. "They're headed to the Helios station. That's where they must be building the accelerators." She turned to face him fully. "Talaris, we can't take on an entire station alone." "We won't be alone." He smiled mysteriously and reached for her hand. Where their skin met, tiny sparks of energy danced. While you've been teaching me about your history, I've been reaching out through the quantum field. There are others who want to help beings who remember what it means to be free." As if on cue, their communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke in a language Lyra didn't recognize, but Talaris's face lit up with joy. "My sister's bondmate," he translated. "She leads a group of resistance fighters in the drift colonies. They've been sabotaging Asterian operations for months, but they needed proof of what was really happening. Now, with the data we've gathered." Lyra was already plotting a new course. "The drift colonies are 3 days at full burn. If we time it right, we could intercept that freighter just before it reaches Helios Station." "It's not just about freeing the captives," Talaris cautioned. "The Asterians have developed neural suppressors that can disable a Meridian's quantum abilities. Breaking those bonds requires intimate connection, someone willing to share their own neural patterns as a template for freedom." The implication was clear. Lyra would need to do more than just help from the outside. She would need to literally share her mind with the imprisoned Meridians, risking her own psyche in the process. "How dangerous is it?" she asked, already knowing it wouldn't change her decision. Talaris moved closer, his presence filling the small cockpit with subtle energy. "The human mind isn't designed to handle quantum resonance. It could overwhelm you, change you in ways we don't understand. The fact that you can even sense my thoughts is unprecedented." Lyra thought of the moment they'd first connected in the facility, how natural it had felt to bridge the gap between their consciousness. Maybe that's exactly why it has to be me. The Asterians would never expect a human to be capable of this kind of connection. Their ship hummed as she engaged the quantum drive. Among the stars ahead, she could almost see the threads of destiny weaving together. "We'll need supplies," she continued, falling into planning mode. "And I should contact Raven. She has connections in the medical research community who might be able to help us understand the neural suppressors." "You're still willing to risk everything?" Talaris asked softly, "even knowing what it might cost?" Lyra reached out, her fingers tracing the crystalline patterns on his cheek. The contact sent shivers of energy through her arm, but she didn't pull away. "Some things are worth any cost. Freedom, justice." She paused, acknowledging the growing warmth between them. "Connection." The moment was interrupted by another transmission. More resistance fighters reaching out through Talaris's quantum network. As they responded, coordinating their approach to Helios Station, Lyra realized that their small act of defiance in the research facility had grown into something far larger. A revolution was brewing in the quantum fields between stars, and at its heart was the unlikely pair of them, an archaeologist who couldn't ignore injustice and a crystalline being learning to feel again. "The Asterians believe they understand power," Talaris said as they plotted their course to the drift colonies. "They measure it in energy outputs and network capacities, but true power—" He covered her hand with his, their combined energy creating a small aurora of light between them. "True power lies in the choice to stand against darkness, no matter the odds." Lyra squeezed his hand, watching the stars streak by. In a few days, they would attempt something unprecedented, a jailbreak on a quantum scale. But for now, in the quiet of their small ship, she allowed herself to marvel at how the discovery of one imprisoned being had led her to discover so much more about herself. The revolution was coming, and it would begin not with weapons or armies, but with the simple act of reaching out, mind to mind, heart to heart, across the boundaries of species and space itself. The drift colonies hung in space like scattered jewels, their habrings turning slowly in the light of distant stars. Inside the Resistance's hidden base, Carved into an asteroid's core, Lyra watched as Talaris met his sister's bondmate for the first time in centuries. Nyara Shah was everything her brother wasn't, sharp edges where he was smooth, fierce crystal formations spiraling from her shoulders like wings. But when the siblings connected, quantum energy flowing between them, the resemblance became clear in their shared grace. "You've done well finding this one," Nyara said to Talaris, studying Lyra with eyes like black diamonds. "She carries starlight in her neural patterns. We've never seen a human capable of quantum resonance before." The resistance base hummed with activity as fighters of various species prepared for their assault on Helios Station. Raven had come through with crucial information about the neural suppressors, smuggled from research databases she'd accessed with her medical credentials. "The suppressors work by creating a quantum interference pattern," Raven's hologram explained during their strategy session. "It's like noise cancellation, but for consciousness itself. Breaking that pattern requires an external consciousness to act as a template, something the Asterians never considered possible." Lyra felt the weight of eyes on her as Raven continued. "The risk to the human mind during neural bridging is significant. Memory loss, personality changes, possibly worse." "We've been practicing," Talaris interjected, moving closer to Lyra. "Starting with small connections, building tolerance. Lyra's neural plasticity is remarkable." Indeed, their mental connections had grown stronger during their journey to the drift colonies. Lyra now saw quantum fields naturally, beautiful arrays of possibility flowing through space. And sometimes, in quiet moments, she caught glimpses of Talaris's homeworld through his memories, crystal cities that sang with pure energy. Nyara's resistance force had grown beyond just freeing meridians. Species who had suffered under Asterian technological supremacy saw an opportunity for change. The cargo freighter they planned to intercept carried not only imprisoned meridians, but also experimental weapons powered by quantum energy. "The assault team will create a diversion here," Nyara indicated on the holographic display. "While they're occupied, Lyra and Talaris will lead a small team to the containment sector. That's where the neural bridging needs to happen." Late that night, unable to sleep, Lyra found herself in the asteroid's observation dome. The view of space here was unfiltered, raw, and beautiful. She sensed Talaris's approach before she heard him, their growing connection humming like a subtle harmony. "Having doubts?" he asked, settling beside her. "Not about what we're doing," she replied. "Just processing. A month ago, I was cataloging artifacts, thinking I was preserving history. Now I'm part of making it." His crystalline hand found hers, and the contact sent familiar waves of warmth through her body. "You're thinking about what Raven said, about the risks." "I'm thinking about you," she corrected. "About what you lost, what all your people lost, and how perhaps this was always meant to be not just freeing the meridians, but showing the galaxy that different species can share consciousness, share understanding." Talaris was quiet for a moment, his skin reflecting the starlight. "When I was first captured, I tried to shut down my emotions, become as cold as the crystals in my flesh. I thought it would hurt less." His free hand traced patterns in the air, quantum energy dancing between his fingers. "But you taught me that feeling deeply, even when it brings pain, is what makes us truly alive." The next day brought final preparations. The resistance fighters, a mix of smugglers, ex-slaves, and defectors from various worlds, readied their ships. Lyra underwent one last neural training session with both Shaw siblings, strengthening her ability to maintain consciousness while channeling quantum energy. "Remember," Nyara instructed, "when you connect with the imprisoned meridians, you're not just providing a template for freedom. You're showing them that connection is still possible, that feeling is still possible." The assault began at the edge of Helios Station's sensor range. Resistance ships emerged from quantum space, their weapons targeting the freighter's engines with surgical precision. As alarms blared and Asterian defense forces scrambled, Lyra and Talaris led their small team through a maintenance airlock. Inside the freighter, they found the containment sector exactly where their intelligence had indicated. Dozens of stasis pods lined the walls, each holding a meridian trapped in suspended animation. The sight made Talaris's skin pulse with angry light. "Neural suppressors are active," one of their team reported. "We have minutes before security responds to the power spike." Lyra stepped forward, placing her hands on the central control panel. Talaris moved behind her, his chest against her back, adding his strength to hers. As one, they reached into the quantum field. The first connection was like touching an electric storm. The imprisoned Meridian's mind was chaos, fractured by years of suppression. Lyra pushed through the pain, offering her consciousness as a bridge, showing the way back to wholeness. One by one, the stasis pods began to crack. Meridians emerged, their crystalline forms glowing with renewed power. Each freed being joined the quantum network, adding their strength to break the next set of bonds. But the strain on Lyra's mind was mounting. Colors began to blur, memories fragmented and reformed. She felt Talaris's panic as her consciousness started to fray. "Stay with me," he whispered, both aloud and in her mind. "Focus on my voice. Remember who you are, what brought you here." She held onto him like an anchor in a storm of quantum energy. Images flashed through her mind. The research facility where they met, their first shared thoughts, the quiet moments on their ship when she'd learned to see beauty in his alien form. The last stasis pod cracked open as security forces breached the outer doors. But they were too late. The freed Meridians, dozens strong, raised their hands in unison. Quantum energy cascaded through the ship systems, overloading the neural suppressors and creating a feedback loop that disabled the Asterian weapons. "The template," one of the freed Meridians gasped, supporting Lyra's exhausted form. "She gave us back ourselves." Talaris lifted her gently as their team began their extraction. Through their bond, she felt his concern, his gratitude, and something deeper growing between them, an emotion that transcended physical forms. As they escaped aboard their waiting ship, news came from across the sector. Other Meridians, connected through the quantum field, were breaking free of their own bonds. The revolution wasn't just succeeding, it was spreading like starfire through the neural networks that powered the Asterian Empire. Lyra drifted in and out of consciousness, her mind adjusting to the changes the quantum exposure had created. But each time she opened her eyes, Talaris was there, his presence a constant reminder that some changes, even the frightening ones, could lead to something extraordinary. They had broken the crystal cage, but the true revolution, she realized as she felt the quantum field singing around them, was only beginning. Recovery came slowly for Lyra in the depths of the Resistance's new base on Nexus Prime. Her mind, altered by the mass neural bridging, now perceived reality differently. Quantum fields appeared as visible currents of light, and her dreams were filled with crystalline songs. "Your neural patterns have stabilized," Raven reported, studying the medical scans. She had officially joined the Resistance after the successful liberation at Helios Station. "But they're not exactly human anymore. The quantum exposure has created something hybrid." Talaris rarely left Lyra's side during her healing, his presence helping her anchor herself when the quantum sensations became overwhelming. Their connection had deepened beyond mere telepathy. They shared emotions, memories, even physical sensations. "You're not lost," he would remind her when she felt adrift in the new sensations. "You're evolving, like my people did ages ago when we first learned to touch the quantum field." The Resistance base buzzed with activity. The liberation of the Meridians had sparked widespread rebellion against Asterian rule. Quantum networks across the Empire were failing as their power sources gained consciousness and fought back. But the Asterians weren't defeated yet. "They're developing new weapons," Nyara reported during a strategy session. "Quantum dampeners that could permanently sever our connection to the field. And they're not just targeting Meridians anymore, they're hunting humans with quantum sensitivity." Lyra understood the implications. She wasn't just a curiosity now, she was proof that humans could evolve beyond the Asterians' control. Her very existence threatened their technological supremacy. In the quiet hours between missions, Lyra and Talaris explored their growing bond. His crystalline form no longer seemed alien to her. Rather, her perception had expanded to see the beauty in his quantum nature. Together, they discovered that their combined abilities could manipulate reality in ways neither species had achieved alone. "Show me again," she asked one evening as they sat in the base's arboretum. Talaris extended his hand, and together they reached into the quantum field. Around them, light bent and fractured, creating a miniature aurora that danced through the trees. "My people have legends," he said softly, "about the first bonding between minds. They say love isn't just an emotion, it's a force as fundamental as gravity, capable of bending the universe itself." Lyra turned to face him, seeing not just his physical form, but the complex quantum patterns that made up his true self. "Is that what this is between us? Love?" His response came not in words, but in a surge of emotion through their bond, wonder, devotion, and a deep certainty that transcended species. Their first kiss tasted like stardust, sending ripples through the quantum field around them. But their moment of peace was shattered by alarms. Asterian forces had found the base, led by quantum scanning devices calibrated to detect hybrid neural patterns like Lyra's. The evacuation was chaos. Resistance fighters rushed to their ships as the first bombardment began. But Lyra and Talaris didn't run. Standing together in the command center, they reached into the quantum field with their combined power. Reality bent around them. The Asterian sensors went blind, their quantum dampeners reflecting back on themselves. Through their shared consciousness, Lyra and Talaris created a shield of pure energy that gave the resistance time to escape. "We can't keep this up forever," Lyra gasped, feeling the strain of holding back the Asterian assault. "We don't have to," Talaris replied, supporting her. "Just long enough." As the last resistance ships jumped to safety, they finally let the shield fall. But instead of retreating, they turned to face the approaching Asterian forces. Their discovery had started this revolution. Perhaps their union, proof that different species could not only coexist but evolve together, could help end it. Through their bond, they shared a single thought. Whatever came next, they would face it as one. Their love wasn't just a personal connection anymore. It was a symbol of hope for everyone who dreamed of breaking free from Asterian control. As enemy ships surrounded the base, Lyra and Talaris stood hand in hand, their combined quantum field glowing like a newborn star. They had found something worth fighting for, not just freedom from oppression, but the freedom to become something entirely new. The final battle for the future of their galaxy was about to begin. The Asterian flagship loomed before them like a mechanical leviathan, its quantum dampeners humming with deadly purpose. But Lyra and Talaris didn't see a weapon of war. They saw an opportunity to end this conflict not through destruction, but transformation. "Their entire empire runs on quantum networks," Lyra said, her hybrid consciousness reading the energy patterns flowing through the enemy fleet. "Networks that can't be separated from the fabric of space-time itself." "And we are quantum beings now," Talaris finished her thought, their shared understanding flowing between them like light. "Not just communicating through the field, but part of it." The Asterian commander's voice boomed through the base's failing communication system. "Surrender the hybrid and the meridian leadership. Their neural patterns will be studied and replicated. Progress cannot be stopped." Lyra felt Talaris's anger at the words, the same justification the Asterians had used to enslave his people. But beneath the anger was something stronger: hope. Together, they had proven that true progress came not from control, but connection. Around them, the quantum field rippled with possibility. During Lyra's recovery, they had discovered that their combined consciousness could do more than just manipulate energy. They could reshape the quantum framework itself, changing the very rules that governed reality. "We need to show them," Lyra said, both aloud and through their bond. "Not tell them, not fight them, show them what connection really means." Understanding flowed between them. It was risky. Opening their shared consciousness to the entire Asterian fleet could overwhelm them both. But if they succeeded, they could break the cycle of dominance and fear that had driven the Empire for centuries. They reached for each other as the first shots from the Asterian ships pierced the base's shields. Their physical forms began to glow as their consciousness expanded. quantum energy flowing through them like a river of light. The Asterian weapons fell silent as their shared vision touched the fleet's quantum networks. Through those same channels that had once imprisoned Meridians, Lyra and Talaris sent not commands or controls, but experience. The joy of genuine connection, the beauty of shared understanding, the power of willing cooperation between different forms of life. At first, there was resistance. Asterian minds, trained to value control above all, tried to shut out the foreign sensations. But the quantum field carried truth that couldn't be denied, the evidence of what was possible when beings chose to grow together. Through their expanded awareness, Lyra and Talaris felt the change begin. Asterian crews, linked through their ship's networks, experienced for the first time the kind of connection they had sought to harness. They felt the pain they had caused, the potential they had squandered, and the possibility of a different way. The quantum dampeners powered down. Weapon systems went dark. And through the quantum field came something unprecedented, an Asterian mind reaching back not to control but to understand. Across the sector, the revolution transformed. Where there had been battles, there were now conversations. The Meridians, led by Nyara, began teaching others to access the quantum field safely, sharing their ancient knowledge freely. The resistance became not just a force for liberation, but a movement of transformation. Lyra and Talaris found themselves at the center of it all, their hybrid existence proving that evolution didn't mean losing oneself, but growing into something greater. Their love had become a bridge between worlds, showing that the greatest power in the universe wasn't control or technology, but the choice to connect, to change, to grow. Months later, they stood together on a new world, watching crystalline cities rise alongside human settlements. Their hands were clasped, quantum energy flowing between them as naturally as breath. Was it worth it? Talaris asked, thinking of all they had risked, all they had changed, including themselves. Lyra smiled, seeing both the physical world and the quantum field that connected all things. In their shared vision, she could see the future they had helped create. A galaxy where different species chose to evolve together, where technology served connection rather than control, where love itself was understood as the most fundamental force of progress. "Everything worth having changes you," she replied, sending waves of affection through their bond. "The trick is choosing the right changes." Around them, the quantum field sang with possibility. They had moved beyond resistance, beyond revolution, into something entirely new. Their story had become part of the universe's endless dance of transformation, proving that the greatest adventures lay not in conquering the stars, but in learning to shine together. And in the space between moments, between thoughts, between the very atoms of reality, their love continued to grow, showing all who could see that the future belonged not to those who sought to control it, but to those brave enough to evolve toward it, hand in hand, heart to heart, beyond the stars themselves.